I'm with you 100%. For me, I don't think it's an if, I think it's a when. But my big concern is with mental health. I think that is, once we do extend life expectancy, I think we're going to have an influx of mental health issues, depression, neurosis, psychosis. I think it's going to open a new wave of conditions. I mean,
all right. First question I have for you is, why do you think that? What's the basis of that apprehension of yours?
Why do I think that? Why do I, like the individual?
Yeah,
self?
you. Yeah, why do you think that? Are you a professional psychologist? I mean, what are you?
I'm not a professional psychologist.
So what gives you this?
Hold on a sec. I mean, let's. This is something. This is not. Why do you not think that?
Because there's no reason to think it.
But Aubrey, I think what Luke's arguing is the fact that people deal with more and more anxiety every single day because of the ways in which they're living their lives. If we assume that the world is going to be a lot like it is today, are we going to have the same sorts of issues that cause the influx of things like depression or anxiety if we don't fix those?
All right. The best answer I can give is...
Because can I just actually finish what I was going to say? Because you just went straight in. And this is with no disrespect. But you focus so much on the external aspects of prolonging life, but you're not focused on the internal aspects.
I do get it. I do get what you're saying. Okay, so of course there are linkages between the external and the internal. You know, one's satisfaction with one's life is very significantly influenced by one's health and by one's expectation of one's future health. So I don't think one can really disconnect them. However, to disconnect them temporarily, to look at the distinct parts, I think the fundamental thing that we always have to take into account when we think about the way in which an individual or society in general will respond to the increasing longevity of society is that it will happen gradually, that we will only get older at 1 year per year. There won't be any 1,000-year-old people for another 900 years, whatever happens. And yeah, that's a lot of time to figure out what to do. So I absolutely believe that we need to be alive to the possibility that increasing lifespans will, throw out new problems, new psychological problems included, and perhaps those are the most important ones. But I do not believe that those problems will emerge bang like that and suddenly we will have some tragedy. I believe that the only realistic scenario, if those problems were to occur at all, is that they will emerge very gradually, we will see them emerging, and we will figure out what to do as they happen.
Just keep your fingers crossed. Question just at the back here.
Hi. Some of your counter-arguments to the concerns of stuff such like that.
Raise your hand, I can't see you.
Right.
Okay, got you.
Some of your counter-arguments to people's concerns about stuff like overpopulation and stuff rely on your kind of quite optimistic predictions of what consequences future advances will have on the Earth's carrying capacity and future societies. What are you basing these predictions on?
Yeah, right. Good question. Good question.
Is there a quantifiable amount? Or?
Let me start there. So, first of all, you say that my predictions are optimistic, but what do you mean? Do you mean over-optimistic?
Or just optimistic?
Well, this is it, you see. When people say optimistic, what they really mean is over-optimistic. When people say realistic, what they really mean is pessimistic. So,
welcome to England.
Quite. So it's important to actually come up with as objective a probabilistic scenario understanding as one can. What is actually likely to happen? And when I say that these things are blindingly likely, vanishing unlikely not to happen in time for everything, I'm getting that from the current rate of progress. I believe I'm, evaluating data objectively. However, let's also bear in mind that even if I'm wrong, we have a couple of rather important, shall we say, backup arguments. The first one is this. Supposing that we actually fail to develop the necessary technologies or societal changes or whatever to preempt this or that concern of the kind that is typically raised today, whether it's overpopulation, whether it's inequality of access, whether it's dictators living forever, whatever it is. Supposing that would happen, then what we have to ask ourselves is, how bad would that problem be in that worst case scenario? And we have to compare our perceived severity of that problem with the severity of the problem that we are solving and whose solution would be causing the new problem. So, how bad is aging right now? We're very good at putting it out of our minds, but is that relevant? The fact is, aging kills 110,000 people worldwide every fucking day. And it doesn't just kill them. You've got to obviously take into account all the suffering that goes before, all the decline, disease, and dependence, and decrepitude, and general misery, that goes with all that. Seems pretty bad to me. So if we were faced with a scenario in which, just to take overpopulation as an example, if we were faced with a scenario in which we had not developed enough technology to increase the carrying capacity of the planet, and we did have a really serious climate change situation, for example, and we had to choose between, on the one hand, having fewer kids than we would like going forward, or on the other hand, everyone getting Alzheimer's and cancer and all the things we get today, realistically, what would you choose? I mean, come on. Well, you are people, you see. That's why I said that. I'm saying, what would people choose? Now, of course, one might have to, impose some kind of restriction on people's choices in the way that China did, for wrong reasons earlier on and so on. But the fact is, it's a choice. It's a choice that we can make, and we have to ask ourselves today, would the choice be so bad as the situation today?
Are we capable of making choices as a species?
Very good. So then the next... Right, so of course we're bad at making choices. China's probably better than your average democracy at making choices as a society. And of course it is hard. But the fact is, society does make choices at the end of the day. And the other thing, perhaps the most fundamental thing for us today, which is even more fundamental than what I just said about the sense of proportion, about ranking the severity, is the right to choose. Not the ability to choose, the right to choose. Seems to me very clear, completely unequivocal, that if we were to say, oh dear, I think we're going to not be able to cope with this overpopulation problem, let's not develop this anti-aging technology at all. And thereby, if we were to delay the point at which this anti-aging technology actually comes into existence, then what we would be doing is we would be denying a certain cohort of humanity the opportunity to take advantage of these therapies because they wouldn't be developed in time for them, whereas if we had made a different decision, they would have been developed in time. Okay? Now, the question is, do we have the moral entitlement to do that, to take away that choice from that cohort of future humanity? To me, it's completely obvious that we don't. Not only from a purely ethical point of view, but also from a straightforward practical point of view. The fact that humanity in the future is going to know things that we don't know about, for example, whether we have developed good enough solar energy or whatever. So it's just like inconceivable to me. I just do not understand why people even argue about this.
Any other questions at all?
Paul here, huge fan of anti-aging. Thank you for your speech. I have a question regarding the funding issue of the industry.
Okay, is the question on the lines of, what is your bank account number?
No.
What is it?
It's actually really interesting in my opinion. Has the Sense Foundation considered issuing a token on a blockchain platform?
Yes, we have. So, okay, let me briefly address where that is right now. So we are we have a lot of supporters who are highly interested in that kind of area. One of our major donors, actually, as of this year, is Vitalik Buterin, who started Ethereum. And Actually, I'm interested in your accent because it turns out that most of the people in our community who have been really pursuing this are Russian.
And wrong.
Well, there you go. So yes, but yes, it turns out that there's quite a lot going on. We ourselves are not doing it, but a large part of the reason why we're not is because we kind of don't need to, because we have supporters who are pursuing it with much better expertise than us, and anything that comes off will come back to us. What?
I would be really glad to spend some of my
Okay, please get in touch.
Well, look, if you got Bitcoin hanging around, then we got a donation. We got a donation box at the back.
Sure, yeah. So Luke has my contact information. If you want to get in touch, please do so, and we will loop you into everything that we're doing in that area.
Any other questions? So just gentleman here, just in front of you.
Hello. First of all, thanks very much for the presentation.
Thank you. I always get worried when people start that way because they're always going to be insulting. All right.
But
I'd like to put my question in context by saying that when I researched my latest book, Cosmo Sapiens, Human Evolution from the Origin of the Universe, I found
now
that,
available in all good bookstores.
Yes. I found that all but the brightest scientists reacted very, very defensively to any questioning of the current paradigm in their particular specialist field, even despite a lot of empirical evidence contradicting it. So my question is in two parts. How do you respond to the withering criticisms of SENS by Preston W. Estep III et al. In MIT Technology Review, 11 July 2006, and also by the 28 gerontologists from the European Molecular Biology Organization in 2005 that concluded that your therapies, quote, have never been shown to extend the lifespan of any organism, let alone humans. The second part of my question is, what 15-year logjams in aging research has SENS broken through in the last couple of years?
Sounds good. Okay, so as to your first question, I'm entertained that you actually incorporated the dates of the things in your question.
What are you trying to say, Aubrey?
Most people don't do that. I'm also presuming that your question is rhetorical because as a writer, I'm sure you've done your research and you know that the respective criticisms were accompanied in both cases by responses from me, which appeared to be rather decisive. And I say that simply because the criticisms of which you speak have not been repeated. And indeed, at this point, we are in the rather nice position where the general concept that I put forward back in 2000 of comprehensive damage repair as a way to do something about aging is actually being reinvented by august grandees within the field under the somewhat disingenuous pretense that it's a new idea. So this has become an absolutely mainstream orthodox concept. All of the criticisms that were put forward back then have been completely repudiated, and only a very small rump of extremely vested interest-driven gerontologists are still even slightly pretending that sense is in any way unscientific. You will find that there are a number of people who were authors of one or both of those publications who are now on our scientific advisory board. That's about as much of an about turn as you can imagine. So yes, it's really just a matter of education. I kind of knew this was coming, and indeed something you may not know, I don't think this has been terribly well publicized, is that the MIT Technology Review episode was actually orchestrated by us. We actually caused this to happen as a way of, if you like, smoking out the opposition and getting them to actually place their criticisms and their denigration of sense on record so that it could be rebutted, in contrast to the off-the-record ridicule that had been prevailing over the previous year or two. So yeah, that's all going rather well. Now, with regard to the second part of your question, what's happened recently, I'm very gratified to say that we can answer that question in a very concrete manner at this point. I'll stick with just two examples. So, as you, I'm sure, are aware, SENS consists of 7 major strands of research. I would say that if we had to pick out the 2 of them which had been most log-jammed for the past, let's say, 15, 20 years, they would be mitochondrial mutations and crosslinks, okay? And both of them have actually seen really dramatic breakthroughs from our side, from our work, from our funded work over the past couple of years. On mitochondrial mutations, we published a paper just around a year ago now in Nucleic Acids Research, which was a much greater progress towards the idea of backing up the mitochondrial DNA in the nucleus than anyone had ever done before. That's an idea that was first put forward in the mid-'80s, and basically everybody gave up on it. I basically said people had given up too soon. I was kind of right, but it did take us 10 years to get to the point where we really cracked it. We still have some way to go to really crack it, of course, but everybody is taking it and us very seriously right now. So that's very good news. On cross-linking, same kind of thing. The major molecular structure that is responsible for the loss of elasticity of the skin and the major arteries and so on was discovered in the mid-'90s, and it was established rather quickly that it was the major contributor to this process, but nobody knew anything about what to do about it. They just totally gave up on it in favor of just trying to minimize the rate at which it would come into existence. And again, what we did first was we figured out a way to synthesize this stuff in vitro in a test tube, and that allowed us to move forward in fairly obvious ways, not just measuring it, like, generating antibodies and so on, but also identifying enzymes that would break it down and so on. So that is actually now far enough advanced that within the next few months, it's going to be spun out into a startup company. Yeah, so we're pretty happy about how things have been going.
Question just here.
Thank you very much. It was really great talk. I'm also a big fan. So I would like just to restore a bit gender balance with questions, and also to capitalize that on your interest for Russian, because you can hear my accent. So anyway, my question is, what your average person who is very, very kind of passionate about anti-aging can do? Yeah. Let's say I'm not a millionaire, and
let's say you're not a millionaire, okay?
Unfortunately.
But if you are,
but I really would like to contribute. For example, I'm a biomedical researcher, so I understand kind of technological bit of it as well.
Okay, yeah. So any millionaires in the audience, please see me afterwards. Any biomedical researchers in the audience, also, please see me afterwards, or at least write to me, because the fact is we do have a pretty damn good idea about which areas of research are the most important and the most neglected, and we want to maximize the personnel. Ultimately, biological research is really manpower intensive. So absolutely, we want people to be informed about what choices to make in terms of their career direction. However, for everybody else, at the end of the day, there's just one word answer to that question, which is advocacy. I spend my entire life going around telling the tale, right? Giving people a good idea about where things are and disabusing people, getting people to realize that this is feasible and it is desirable. And I feel that I do what I do really well. But the fact is, I only do what I do. And advocacy is a curious thing. It's something that, everybody's different. Everybody has different audiences. There are people who just won't listen to me because I've got a beard or because I've got an English accent or whatever it is, right? And so there are masses of people out there that other people can communicate to better than I can. Diversity, variety of messaging and messenger is vital. So I want everybody here who is in favor of all of this work to get doing that. And the way to do it is very simple. Number one, learn the right answers. learn enough biology so that you don't make a fool of yourself, which isn't very much. You don't need to know much. But also, very important, learn enough about the answers I give and the answers that other people who've been around a long time give so that you don't give stupid answers. You know, one thing that really pisses me off is when really well-meaning people in this field will be asked the question, the overpopulation question, and they'll say, "Don't worry, we'll all go into space." Now, I am not saying that it's impossible that we'll all go into space. I am saying that it's impossible that that would be a permanent solution. Anyone who knows enough maths to know that exponential functions overtake polynomial functions can answer that. But the fact is that whether or not it's a realistic answer, it's not a persuasive answer because most people don't want to go into space. So please, for fuck's sake, pay attention to what people want to hear. All right.
We've probably got time for one more question. Let's make it easy for you then.
So mine's a bit of a technical question,
Go ahead.
slightly. So most of your therapies require like some advanced form of delivery. So currently we use viruses quite a bit. So my question is, so your approach for cancer is deleting certain genes that allow cells to extend their telomeres. How would you do we need to develop any new kind of delivery methods, or are there existing ones that would allow us to effectively deliver like a way of deleting that gene to enough cells in the body that we can effectively prevent cancer?
Two-part answer. So first answer specifically with regard to disrupting genes or indeed making other small modifications to genes. Of course, everyone here has not heard of CRISPR. Many of you may know that CRISPR is not quite specific enough. You know, it has off-target effects that are, you know, low-ish, but they happen. But everybody has kind of known that that's an important problem to solve, and work has been going on pretty damn feverishly for the past 5 years trying to improve that. And at this point, my understanding, based on the best people, including George Church, for example, a very prominent guy who is also on our scientific advisory board, is that basically we're there. That we now have ways to make targeted modifications to the genome that have high penetrance, in other words, they affect a large number of cells in vivo, and they have basically zero off-target impact. Second part of the answer relates to a lot of sense, because what we need to do in many cases in sense is not just to disrupt existing genes, but actually to insert new DNA. For example, backup copies of the mitochondrial DNA in the nucleus. Now, CRISPR doesn't do that, and nor does any of the new versions of CRISPR and so on. They just make small modifications. So our approach to fixing that, to addressing that problem, is we have identified a type of bacteriophage, a bacterial virus, which is, again, very, very, very site-specific, really doesn't mess up anywhere else other than what you want to. But the problem with this virus is that unlike CRISPR, you can't customize its landing site. CRISPR, as you know, it has a guide RNA, right? You can say which part of the genome is going to be disrupted. This bacteriophage, you can't do that. And sure enough, it won't surprise you, since it's a bacteriophage, so its host is a bacterium, the landing pad where it's evolved to go to doesn't exist in the mammalian genome, right? So it doesn't do anything when you put it in. Now, people have tried for a while to kind of in vitro evolve the enzyme so that it has a different target site. Didn't work. It's just too hard. So what we've done instead is we've decided to go a two-step strategy. Number one, use CRISPR, or rather the novel versions, right, to put in the landing pad, into a safe, highly transcribed site in the human genome. And then step two, use our bacteriophage to get this, right. And it works. So we've already got now mice which have the landing pad inserted into Rosa 26, well-known, well-characterized locus. And we are just starting a project using that, those mice, characterizing them to see exactly how well we can get, reported DNA initially, of course, into that in different tissues. Yeah, it's obviously a very important question. It's a question that we've understood to be important for a very long time. And actually, we should be a few years ahead of where we are with this now, and we would be if it hadn't been for lack of money.
So we're going to conclude this with another one of Aubrey's favorite games, which requires everybody to put their hand in the air.
No, in that pocket and bring out a quid.
Oh, I see what you're doing. No, if everybody can put just their hand in the air. Oh my God. Wow. Okay. All right. And put it down if you don't want to live till tomorrow.
What?
Graham, I don't know what's happening with you, but we need to have a chat, mate. If you don't want to live till 80, if you don't want to live till 100, if you don't want to live till 200, if you don't want to live to 1,000, and if you don't want to live forever. Wow. Okay. That's fucking scary. So, Aubrey, I'm going to ask you a very final question, which is really about you as an individual, because you really do understand your mimetic power. You really understand sort of the best way to present unconventional ideas. I think you've described it once before as you understand how to be a successful heretic. And I just wonder if you could share some of your advice for any individuals who wanted to share these ideas, especially the people who want to live forever, how best they can go about doing that. Do they have to grow a wonderful and very beautiful wizardry beard, or can they do it through other means?
Well, the beard doesn't hurt, I'm telling you that. But
Get growing. You got your entire fucking life to do it.
It only took me
till eternity.
It only took me 2 years. So yeah, I did actually give a talk at TED, not my main talk, but there is one, I think it's online in a few iterations, called How to Be a Successful Heretic. So try and dig that out if you really want to know. But the first, with a kind of 10-point plan, because I actually, it was based on the TED. So when you give a talk at TED, okay, you probably don't know this. This is one of the most extraordinary things. So the guy who runs TED, a guy named Chris Anderson, he went to Oxford. And, Oxford and Cambridge, they have this competition, right? I went to Cambridge, obviously. So Cambridge is better at certain things, like, for example, science. And like, Oxford is much better at certain things, like, for example, being so spectacularly pretentious that you don't even know whether they're joking, right? So in the case of TED, Chris had this idea that he would send prospective speakers, before they spoke, he would send them this thing called the TED Commandments. And I kid you not, they actually send you a piece of stone. I mean, it costs them money, they FedEx it to... It's a piece, for fuck's sake. And it says things like, thou shalt not give thy usual shtick, and so on. And like, thou shalt not sell from the... I'm sure I had a reason for telling this.
Oh, yeah, hold on. Aubrey, we were talking about how to be a good heretic.
That's right. So I just...
It involves stones.
I decided to kind of give a bit of a parody of this one day at TED. So anyway, long and short of it is, my first thing was, be right. Diligence before oratory is what I said, something like that. There is no point in trying to sell an idea that's radical unless it's true. So, actually study what I've done, and said and worked out, and make sure that you give a faithful representation of it, both science and the advocacy side. And then all the other things I said were, be everywhere, travel a lot. I said something like a pint is worth 1,000 words, and be funny. I have the distinction of being the only scientist who ever went on the Colbert Report and actually made Colbert laugh. Things like that. It's all obvious stuff, really, but it's not as easy as it sounds.
So, on that note, I owe Aubrey many, many beers for his thousands and thousands of words tonight. And I want to thank the Library Club for hosting us. I apologize I apologize profusely about the chairs, but I love the fact that the Virtual Futures audience were willing to stand and listen to this conversation. I also want to thank you to our volunteers for helping us film tonight's event and to run the mic. They're not just there to film and run the mic. Stephen is running our Near Future Fictions series, which runs throughout next year. Our submission deadline is the 21st of December of this year. So if you're a short fiction writer, please come and see Stephen, the gentleman with a microphone, at the end. And thank you to Halidonso, who was helping with filming today. He's a wonderful cyborg artist in his own right, and do get a chance to talk to him. So if you like what we do, we're entirely audience funded. So please do support us on Patreon, or just find out more about us online. And we're pretty much at Virtual Futures everywhere you social media. And I want to thank you, the audience, again for sitting through an hour and a half of deep dive conversations, the potential of living forever. But what I really want to do is end with this, which is a warning. And it's the same warning we end every single Virtual Futures with. And it's very simple. It's the fact that the future is always virtual. And some things that may seem imminent or inevitable never actually happen. Fortunately, our ability to survive the future is not predicated on our capacity for prediction. Although, and on those much more rare occasions, something remarkable does come of staring the future deep in the eyes and challenging everything that it seems to promise. I hope you'll feel you've done that this evening. Please join me in thanking the incredible Dr. Aubrey de Grey. The bar is now open.